The NBA season has just officially begun, and I am excited as ever for it. With a new season comes outlandish fan optimism and plenty of year-end predictions. I'm starting off with my first prediction of the season on who I think will be this year's MVP. From year to year, there appear to be plenty of strong candidates for the award, but this year, in my opinion, there's just one. Sure, there are plenty of guys who have a long shot at MVP, but in my opinion, only one player has every factor and all aspects of the award working in his favor, and I'm about to explain why. His name is LeBron James. He's a 4-time league MVP and last year's runner-up. So why LeBron? Well, for almost every single winner of the MVP award in league history, there has been 3 ingredients that have been present, which we will also be referencing throughout the video. Number 1, you have to be on an elite winning team. Number 2, you have to have impressive numbers. And number 3, you have to have a compelling story for the MVP award. Let's take a deeper look at each of these 3 ingredients. Number 1, you have to be on an elite winning team with very few exceptions. Out of the last 30 years of NBA history, only 2 times has a player won the MVP award and not been on either the best team in his conference or the second best team in his conference. The voters simply don't reward someone with the most valuable player award unless they're winning. The 2 instances where a player won the award and wasn't on a top 2 team, the player had done something completely unprecedented and incredibly historical. The first instance was Michael Jordan in 1988, whose Bulls had finished 3rd in the Eastern Conference standings. That year, Michael led the league in scoring with 35 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, and 5.9 assists per game on an insanely efficient 53.5% from the field. He led the league in steals with 3.2 per game and averaged 1.6 blocks per game, which is ridiculously high for a guard. He was the best offensive player in the league that season and its best defensive player, securing the Defensive Player of the Year award. This wasn't just a great season. In many people's minds, this was the greatest NBA season by one player in NBA history. That's the absurdly remarkable effort it took from Jordan to win the MVP award without being on one of the top 2 teams in his conference. The other instance was recent history, which was Russell Westbrook in 2017. In his 2017 campaign, he averaged 31.6 points per game, 10.7 rebounds, and 10.4 assists per game. He was the only player since Oscar Robertson in 1962 to average a triple-double for an entire season. That's why he won the award, because he did something historic that hadn't been done in 55 years. So going back to the original point, unless you do something incredibly historic that hasn't been done for a lifetime, or you plan on having the greatest season in NBA history, you're not going to win the MVP award without being on an elite winning team. Number 2, you have to have impressive numbers. This one is rather obvious, so I won't delve into it much. If you want to win MVP, you have to have MVP type numbers. It doesn't matter if you're the leader of your team and have a winning record if you average just 20 points per game, 3 assists, and 3 rebounds. That simply isn't MVP numbers and won't earn you any serious consideration. Number 3, you have to have a compelling story. This has always been a very prominent aspect of MVP voting. When Derrick Rose won in 2011, it helped that he had the story of a hometown kid who led his team to heights they hadn't reached since the Jordan era had ended. When Steph won in 2015, it helped that he was the leader of a new breed of NBA contenders, dominating not by physicality, but by shooting from the perimeter and revolutionizing the game. Russell Westbrook won in 2017 by overcoming the loss of Kevin Durant and leading his team to the playoffs with his remarkable numbers. A good story helps your case for the MVP award. Kevin Durant dominating statistically on a dominant team of all-stars that was expected to dominate simply isn't a good story in the eyes of the voters. This is the strongest ingredient for LeBron's MVP case this season. He's joining a historically great Lakers organization that hasn't sniffed the playoffs for 5 years. He'll be doing it with a young collection of players and a mixed bag of formerly known controversial veteran players. If LeBron leads his team to success, it will be the first time the Lakers have had success in a very long time, and he'll have done it on an unproven team who many people expect to have a rocky road to the playoffs or miss the playoffs entirely. The low expectations and the story is already working in LeBron's favor for this season's MVP award. Ask yourself this: when was the last time a LeBron James-led team had this low of expectations? In his entire second stint with the Cleveland Cavaliers, he was making trips to the NBA Finals just like everyone expected. In his Miami Heat super team days, anything short of an NBA championship was considered a disappointment. This will be the first time since the mid-2000s that a LeBron James-led team is expected to be well short of the elite teams in his conference, which just means it will be that much more impressive if and when his team is among the elite teams in the conference. If the Lakers finish anywhere above the 5th seed in the Western Conference, it will be seen as a major accomplishment for LeBron and the Lakers, and LeBron will get most of the credit as he usually does. Personally, I do think LeBron will be on an elite winning team this year. He will have the impressive numbers as he always does, and he has an incredibly compelling story and a narrative that is already supporting his case for the MVP award. He's the only MVP contender who has all the ingredients for the recipe of winning this year's MVP award. Many people within the basketball community like Anthony Davis's chances at winning MVP this year, but he simply doesn't have all the ingredients. Sure, he'll have terrific numbers, and he may have a compelling story, but the winning in all likelihood won't be there. The Pelicans will be way short of the top 2 teams in the Western Conference. They were last year when they finished 6th in the West, and their roster has only gotten weaker since then with the losses of DeMarcus Cousins and Rajon Rondo. So I don't see Davis as a realistic threat to LeBron. Kevin Durant and Steph Curry I also don't see as threats to LeBron. You can't be given the title of most valuable player when your team is so stacked that even if your best player went down to injury, you could still win the NBA championship. None of the Warriors players are as valuable to their team as the other contenders for MVP are to theirs, because the Warriors can afford to lose one and still be a dominant team. Curry and Durant may have the winning and the numbers, but the story just isn't there, which means they likely won't be getting any serious consideration for the MVP. Kawhi Leonard doesn't appear to be much of a threat either. Yes, I expect the Raptors to be a stronger threat in the playoffs with Kawhi Leonard as their best player instead of DeMar DeRozan. But with that being said, the MVP is a regular season award, and the Toronto Raptors were a really good regular season team last year. Even with Kawhi Leonard now leading the team, it's going to be extremely difficult for them to improve upon their 59-23 record from last season. Can you really win the MVP award when you're the new addition to the team, but your team fails to improve on its record from the previous season? Kawhi has a small chance at MVP, but I don't think he's going to get it, because the Raptors will have to win at least 60 games for that to happen, and in an Eastern Conference dominated by the Boston Celtics, I don't see that happening. Kyrie Irving's case will suffer a lot from the same hindrances that are affecting Kawhi Leonard's chances, primarily because of how it will be difficult to stand out in the MVP race when it's so difficult to improve upon the team's success from the previous season when the star player wasn't even around. The Boston Celtics finished second in the Eastern Conference standings and went on to the Eastern Conference Finals without Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward. Because of this, it will be extremely difficult for him to receive the majority of the credit for his team's success, and therefore I expect his case for MVP to suffer. The defending MVP is someone I have yet to mention, James Harden. It will be difficult for Houston to improve upon their success from last season, but it is possible. There was also this feeling last year that it was simply James Harden's year and the NBA owed it to him to give him MVP. I'm not saying that he didn't deserve it and that he wasn't my pick to win the award last year, but I am saying that he received more credit for the award last year due to the feeling of him being snubbed from the award multiple times before. Steph Curry was awarded the 2015 MVP, but there were many who believed Harden was more deserving that year. Russell Westbrook won it in 2017, although many people thought Harden should have won it that year as well. LeBron James certainly gave Harden a strong opposition for MVP last year, but many people believed, including myself, that Harden's case for MVP was strengthened by the fact that LeBron had already won the award 4 times and Harden hadn't won yet, and had been snubbed from winning it twice before in recent years. Now, this won't be a factor for this upcoming season. James Harden has a recent MVP, so the voters won't feel as compelled to give him the edge over LeBron this time around if it does become a horse race between the two again. All the ingredients are there for LeBron to lead his Lakers to a strong regular season, and in doing so, matching Michael Jordan's MVP count by securing his 5th MVP award. All LeBron has to do is stay healthy, do what he's always done, and not botch it.